you're strong. I ain't filing a workman's comp claim though on a hurt back.
Gotta stay till the bitter end. I'm the upshot of fallen trends, alright. Is it time for me?
Alright, so Alex is going to do me a solid and run this transmission up the bowlers today. As far as we know, well, we don't know everything about this transmission. I've been told that it was built by a Tremec Elite dealer. We can see like aftermarket RTV around all the joints, so we know it's been apart and put back together before. It drove totally fine, but I'm not willing to put it back in the truck without another professional pulling it apart and just inspecting it. So we do know that I don't want this F-body 6-gear. It's terrible. Like the amount of overdrive from 5th to 6th is like ridiculous, and I hate it. So while they've got it apart, I'm gonna have them change, well, probably 5th and 6th gear to like the newer T56 Magnum close ratio, 5th and 6th gears. And then he's just gonna inspect everything else and make sure it's good. And then honestly, if it's not good, we'll probably just throw this transmission away. It's just not worth buying a bunch of Chinese parts to go in an F-body trans. I would probably just buy a Magnum from there. But we won't know until Mark and his team gets it apart. So here we go.
Bang their heads on the concrete wall for easy access to diamond holes, alright. Is it time for me? There's no guarantee. I see everybody lazy, powerless and crazy.
All right, so second gear here is definitely the worst one we've seen yet. It's almost flat. There's really nothing left of the teeth on second gear. So far, all of the speed gears have been worn out, which I feel like will probably put us right on the bubble of whether it's really practical to rebuild or if we should consider stepping up to a new Magnum. So overall, it really doesn't look bad except for the speed gears. The problem there is availability, and in some cases might be limited to overseas suppliers, which isn't always ideal. So I think at this point we probably need to stop, get in touch with the customer, let them know where we stand and how they want to proceed.
All right, well, it's been a couple of months since we sent my T56 up to Bowler Performance Transmission, and sure enough, man, it has a bunch of damage in it. Not necessarily damage, but a lot of wear on the gears. And what I've learned is that the only parts replacements that are available for the F-body T56s are only Chinese aftermarket stuff. It's just not the right decision. This is gonna be a truck that I wanna race for years and years, and I definitely don't wanna be pulling apart and rebuilding a transmission that's just really not up to the task. So those F-body transmissions now are at least 22 years old. It was only rated for 400 foot-pounds of torque. And like we just said, the parts availability is not from Tremec. So it's not a supported transmission by Tremec. So really, the adult decision here is to cough up more money, but we end up with a transmission that we now don't have to worry about. So what we get is a new transmission with greater RPM capacity. It holds 700 foot-pounds of torque versus that 400, and it gives us the gearing that I really wanted. So, like I said, I hated to spend the money, but I would hate to put a junk transmission back in the truck. Okay, so this is a screen recording that I did, and I'm gonna explain kind of what we're looking at. So right here on the left side, you can enter what gears that you have in your transmission. You can enter the tire diameter here, so that's what I'll be using. And then a 411 gear is what I've landed on. And then you can trace all the shift points. So I've entered an RPM of 7,000 that we can simulate shifting at. And you can see here that it's running through all the gears. And then it's listing what RPM each shift dropped to, and then what mile an hour was achieved with each of those gears too. So I'm gonna pause this here real quick. The top portion is the original transmission that was in the truck out of the F-body Camaro. You can see its gear set versus the T56 Magnums. Really the only difference are the single and double overdrive gears, a 0.74 versus 0.8, and then a 0.5 versus 0.63. And if you look at the splits of 6th gear to 5th gear, or 5th gear to 6th gear, it's ridiculous. It's a huge amount. Whereas the Magnum transmissions tighten that up. So the T56s that we like to use are referred to as close ratio transmissions. The transmission that was in it would be considered a wide ratio. Most importantly, what we're looking at is the difference between the 389 and the 411 gear. I'll be honest and tell you that if you're going to do a lot of interstate driving, or this is more of a multi-purpose vehicle, you're probably going to want to land on like the 389 gear set. If it's more race, you're going to want to land on the 411. And like I said, those splits are important to me. When I changed to the 411 gear set, it tightens all those splits up a little bit. If you can see, the splits from 4th to 5th goes to 32 miles an hour versus 34. So it just tightens them up. And then what I can do in my 5th gear is 161 there versus 170 in the other gear, which honestly I want to be able to run out red line, in my 5th gear to get to the end of the long straightaway. 161 miles an hour, I don't think I'll ever even get there. So I want to get as close to red line as I can on that longer straightaway run. So this 411 gear is exactly what I want. So this is a lot of good information. Feel free to use this website for you guys and some of your researching or planning some of your projects. And then this is just a Google Docs spreadsheet, and simply a free website. You guys all have Google, so you can create a little spreadsheet and kind of record some of this information and just kind of play around with it and see what you like the best.
There's a place I have never been, on the cover of a magazine, alright.
Okay, this is it. I've got it mocked up behind my engine, and I'm using the GM aluminum bell housing. So this is what came factory on 3rd and 4th, well, specifically 4th gen F bodies. But now, just keep in mind that this is the transmission that is specific to 3rd and 4th gen F bodies only. So the reason why I bought this is because my cab already had a floor in it for the F body shifter location. Well, it's not like I couldn't just move it forward if we bought a real Magna, but this is the Magnum F. And honestly, where the shift lever was at is really pretty good for me, because I've got my race seat all the way back and down quite a bit. And then I've got a steering wheel and a race column that I can get, back in the position that I wanted. So this transmission worked out best for me. Most other trucks, like all C10s, you can't do this transmission. If you had a normal OBS, like I would also buy just the normal Magnum. So the Magnum F, its shifter location's here. Magnum is here, which you can actually flip the shifter back and forth. And then the Magnum, you can also use the mid location for your shifter if you wanted to too. So for instance, like all the 67 to 72s that we do, that cab is so small that we have to use the mid shift location, and then square bodies we can use back here. I guess everything that I've said about this transmission does hold true because it is a Magnum, so all the internals are the same. What's specific about this is just that it's the Magnum F, which has the rear shifter location. So anyways, I use this bell housing because it's lightweight. There are SFI bell housings from QuickTime that you guys can use as well. And then I'm gonna use a couple different clutch setups. I'll use one for like my autocrossing and street driving situations, which is a twin disc with larger discs. And then I'm gonna use the Tilton twin 7 1/4 discs for when I do road course stuff. It's just a lighter mass, and I can shift faster. So that's why we're gonna use two different clutches. But we'll be using a Tilton hydraulic release bearing on this. We've got a new hydraulic master cylinder package that we're gonna release this year as well for the OBS trucks. I hope you guys have learned a little bit about this odd transmission situation that I've been in, but honestly, I'm okay with spending money on this now this time. I feel like I got a pretty good situation here. Now the only wild card in this entire truck is this engine. It ran great when we first bought the truck, so let's hope that this engine holds out for us throughout next season. But anyways, I'm just gonna take a minute to do kind of a quick update on like what else we've been doing with this truck. The cab is over there. I've been working on the firewall, a lot of the fabrication done on the firewall. I'm gonna smooth out that firewall, and then I'm actually gonna paint that whole cab. And then AMD just sent me 2 new doors, because those doors were mixed matched and rusty, so that's a whole other thing that I'll get into in another video. But the cab's over there. We can look at it here in a minute if you want to see that. But let's show you a few things that's going on with the frame real quick. I think that the last video, the only thing we really covered was building this rear suspension and its geometry. Since then, some of the stuff that I've done is I've built an additional stiffener that'll tie in the Tinworks inner stiffener to my step notches. All the energy that's coming through the coilover can be transferred directly to the other frame rail or up into the inner stiffener. So that's all tack welded together. I'm pretty happy with that. I have my rear end plumbing all mocked up because this will be a kit that we sell to, the softline plumbing kits for 9 inches and OBSs. The fuel system, I'm gonna do a whole video going over all the ins and outs of the fuel system and why I picked that tank and how I've plumbed it. So we'll go through that in another video, but I do have the fuel system completely mocked up, and I'm very happy with that. And then another little thing that I did was the power, so starting and charging system. It's done on the frame too, and all plumbed, or all wired. But what I did is mounted my anti-gravity Group 35 battery in one of our stainless battery boxes and welded mounts to the frame so that can unbolt and go in and out. But if we follow the charging route, we come out of the battery and we go into a 200 amp breaker. That's our dead short protection on any of the starting charging system. And then I go into our M cell, which is a battery isolator. It just can communicate over CAN, and it has provisions for an exterior kill switch on the outside of the vehicle and an interior kill switch. So that's what that is, it's an isolator. And then I've just run the cables up to bulkheads that are mounted on the frame. So then if I need to pull the engine, I can just unbolt the battery cables from those bulkheads and leave them attached to the engine. Power, starting charging, brake plumbing, and then fuel system plumbing are all done. The front subframe, yep, we're gonna replace the entire front subframe with a new subframe, and that's what we've been working so hard on. All the design, geometry, and fitment of a new subframe, rack and pinion steering, control arms, coilovers, everything. There's gonna be a huge video coming for that stuff. You guys are gonna be really pumped to see what we did with the front. I'm really happy with where the geometry ended up. There's a good amount of change that has to be made to the rails to get the new subframe in. It's all worth it. Juice is worth the squeeze on that for sure, so I'll be excited to show you guys that. But that's Ray. That's all I've got done to Ray in the time being. Actually, let's look at the cab. So the cab's over here. I've been working on the firewall, just getting some of the unnecessary holes welded up and smoothed out. And I was gonna just paint the firewall, but I've actually made the decision to go ahead and do a complete color change and paint and body this entire truck. So you guys are gonna eat me alive over it, but it's something that I just wanna do. The paint and body was pretty terrible. There was quite a bit of stuff that wasn't right, random, just bad bodywork and paint that was on it. So me coming from a collision industry background, I just really want it to be right. This is gonna be a killer street truck, autocross road course truck. I just can't live with the paint and body being as bad as it was. I know you're saying it's a race truck, but I gotta fix some of that stuff. So we're gonna clean up all the interior. I'm gonna mock everything up and then pull it all apart. I'm gonna actually use steel it. We're gonna steel the inside of it, and then the outside we're gonna do a color change on. So glass company will be here tomorrow to pull the glass out of it, and then I'm gonna start body working and getting the cab painted. So when the front suspension's done, we can go ahead and get the cab back on and mock it all up and make sure everything's good to go. But anyways, that's why the cab's off and over here right now. So this is Penny. This is one of our newer projects that we're kind of elbows deep in. This is for one of our customers. His name's Scott. Scott and I started talking maybe 2-3 years ago, and he had bought a chassis from No Limit, and he was kind of doing some stuff in his garage, getting the body on it and everything. Throughout that couple years of communicating, he made the decision to go ahead and bring it to us and let us actually finish the truck. And so there's been some things that we've changed. The biggest one was taking this frame from a non-raised rail drop spindle chassis into a raised rail drop spindle chassis. So the frame has differences between the two. Obviously the raised rail has a raised rail, so the rails are kicked 4 inches up in the back, so you do have to raise the bed floor. So Dylan and I actually cut this frame and we designed the rails in Fusion, and then I had Jimmy laser cut them, and then we put inner reinforcements between the layers, box and welded them, and just completely rebuilt the back of this frame. Now the real raised rail chassis also have a kick up in the front in addition to a drop spindle. Now we didn't modify the front of the frame. All we did is put drop spindles on it. So it won't go hammer low like the raised rail limit chassis will, but it'll definitely get like 2 or 3 inches lower than what it was previously. We haven't dialed in the ride height yet, and there's definitely not all the weight on it, but it'll sit pretty darn close to all the other trucks that we've built. I'm wiring right now, and Dylan's doing a lot of bed fabrication. So we did raise the bed floor up 4 inches, and then we kind of did some neat stuff. If you want to see, there's actually tie downs that we're putting in the bed floor from Max tie downs. So these are like aluminum channels that you can buy. We broke 16 gauge and recessed it down into the factory floor. And then this bed floor will be all bed lined with black bed liner. And then I'll powder coat these black, and they sit down and they're nice and flush. And then they'll fasten down to the bottom of the bed floor. And we've even got plastic caps that can snap down in that and seal and cover this all up when they're not in use. But I think this is pretty cool. The owners of this truck, they've got 2 boys that are big into playing baseball, so they're gonna be going to the ball field quite a bit with coolers and chairs and stuff. Put all that stuff in the bed and tie it down with a little anchor system. So really excited about that. I thought that was a pretty cool thing. Another thing that we're gonna do is a lot of new trucks have like storage in the bed sides. So this truck, we're doing a very similar situation. Like the inner bed side is what will house the battery, the breaker. We're actually putting the onboard lithium charger in that storage area too, and making it to where it can close and lock and all that stuff. And then in the bed side at the rear too, will be a port where you can plug in your extension cord to keep the lithium battery charged over winter. And then it's got a couple different USBs and power outlets that'll be in the bed too. So if they're at the ball field and they need to charge their camera or phones or whatever, they can all do that too. It would be pretty cool for tailgating or whatever. So adding some kind of neat amenities. It's just kind of the stuff that my brain likes to do. Pretty happy about this. This truck already had a built engine when we got it. Scott and his wife had an engine built. It's a cathedral port motor, but actually it's full forged now. It's got a pretty good cam in it, and I think it's a 383. Not a huge cubic inch motor, but should be plenty hot for what they're doing with the truck. It'll be kind of a street truck, family truck, and then he also wants to do like some road course track days and maybe a little bit of autocrossing from time to time. So that's why it's got some of the more motorsport oriented things that we use on the normal basis. But this is a really cool truck. It's penny. His boys named it that because of the interior color that it came with was like a penny color. Anyways, this is one that we're really pumped on and been having a really enjoyable time building. Other than this one, we, since the last time you guys talked or watched our stuff, we got John's 60 Apache truck. That's the full faux patina truck. That one had a huge delay. I was pretty much on street tuning with the tuner, and the latch for the hood failed and the hood came up. So we had to repair the hood, repaint the hood. It's been a whole nightmare that sucks, but we're moving forward again on that truck. I've just got to get the tuning finished, and then it'll go to the upholstery shop and finally get the upholstery done. So that one's in process. The OBS with the BMW Trans is done. That's actually down in Texas with Clay, the owner. We took it to Roman at Art of Assembly in the Fort Worth area, and he's the one that actually got all the BMW DCT shifting dialed in for us. That truck turned out really, really good. You guys saw it in that last video when we were in Texas at Good Guys. So anyways, now that truck's done. They're putting miles on it, working out little bugs and stuff. So really happy about that. We've got a couple trucks across the street that are waiting, that are gonna come in here this winter to get built. Corey Ivy's Lemon Twist truck is getting a new engine. I guess I got a truck on the other side of the shop that I wanna show you that's pretty neat too. We're doing a couple little details on it to get it ready to go back to the customer so he can finish building it. So this is Chris's truck. Chris is a good friend of ours. We've met online and talked a lot about trucks, and he's more of a DIY builder, so him and a friend are doing a lot of this truck themselves. It's a pretty good patina truck. Boris' Street Machinery did a couple little things to dial in the patina. I think it was a long bed originally, or he didn't have a bed and just had the cab and front end. But he bought all NOS bedsides and tailgate and all that stuff, and Boris did all that. But it's on a Roadster Shop ride line chassis. This is one of their chassis that are designed to be more of a like road touring truck, a lot of street driving. Its focus is more comfort and quality of ride versus like top tier handling, geometry, or anything like that. But it's pretty impressive. Again, not a raised bed floor chassis, so it won't sit hammered on the ground, but it's pretty impressive. They've done a completely built LT5. It's got a 10-speed behind it, and then it's got a 9-inch, an independent rear end, a 9-inch. And then they did the C7 ZR1 carbon ceramic brakes, which are super cool. Why it's here is he bought carbon fiber core support and carbon fiber inner fenders, and Dylan and I have fit and mocked up all that stuff. It's actually at the body shop right now getting painted. We've already bed lined all the insides and backsides and stuff like that. So as soon as that carbon front end gets here, we'll put it all back together. Some of the other little stuff we did was put the GM style booster and master. These are C6 Corvette components. And then we did the hard lines and little soft lines, and Dylan made a heat shield to keep the heat off the brake lines. I put one of the anti-gravity Group 35 batteries in it, made a little tie down for that. And then on the side of the cab, we made an opening for our new AC bulkhead panels. There was a shop in California years ago that made a sheet metal piece that went in here that your AC lines could come out and run in the fenders. They don't make those anymore, so now we've made one out of carbon fiber. It's also at the body shop, but it attaches here. Bulkheads come out here for the AC and heater hoses, and they can run up inside the fender. So we've done that, and we cut holes in his dash for the OEM vents. Other than that, this has been a pretty simple in and out job, so we're knocking this one out, and really excited to see him and his buddies wrap this one up. I think this will be a very, very nice street truck. All right, so that's it for this little video. It was just a quick recap of where we were with the transmission and where we're at now with the raised transmission. Kind of showed you around what else I did on that frame, and then kind of what's going on in the shop right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. We've got another video coming shortly on fuel system and then front end suspension stuff. I try to cover some of the other cool projects that we're going to be starting on this winter, and definitely can't leave out Lemon Twist. You guys are going to want to see some of the stuff that we do to that truck over the winter. So I'm going to do our best to continue to stay up on these. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.